And what I want to reiterate in this circumstance, Ian, is that you're just at the beginning of growing the children into now designing the pavilion and believing in what they're doing. And I just want to reiterate the kinds of tasks you have to engage yourself with in this early stage. The first thing you're doing is building belief that we are consultants.
Yeah.
And creating in their minds this sense of a pavilion for the public through this agent of the garden festival. So that's the bottom line of what you're trying to do. But while you're doing it, you're obviously catching in the problem situation. Yes. Socially. We know about that, and we know it isn't easy, and we can only work at it. There are no magic formulas. But also what you're doing is you're feeding in vocabulary suitable to what they are likely to get engaged with. They seem to be interested in pollution and forests at the moment.
Yes.
Later you'll move them on as well, and everybody will get interested in all kinds of other things as well. But the vocabulary you can intrude at this point, introduce through the way you talk. Yes, well, they do say that, maybe how you do it. You're also stiffening this context. Well, Mr. Evans would be very interested in that, I think. There's maybe something we should say we're specifically interested in as well. That kind of thing. You're going to be giving information. Tell you what, I wonder if they'd have anybody at Kielder Forest who could help us with this. You're building in future real research. Yes, well, of course, what you're saying, it does suggest different trees would break at different points. It may be their age, it may be, you know, and you're feeding in questions that might later usefully be asked. At the moment, you're not expecting answers, you're just reverberating, and you're hearing what they say. I mean, what they say will show you something of what they're interested in. And they may be interested in a dream that they can't really fulfill. Like, I don't know whether this person here is considering the legend of Icarus trying to fly and so on, because mythology would naturally come into this work. They might have this dream they can do a ballet of flying. Now, at that point, you don't want to destroy the dream. But you might be thinking, how could I make it possible for them to do that without having to have them flying on wires, you know, and disappointing them because they can't do it. So I might find myself saying, I wonder if we could do that as a very large cartoon that we could then put on video. You're trying to offer a solution, but you're not telling, yes, well, you can do that by having a, you know, because you want them to succeed in it. Even as you say cartoon and video, you're thinking, but what will that teach them? How much of that teaching will be actual study? How much will be vocabulary? How much can I get out of this, you see? And, of course, you are working even now at refining skills, so that when you see half a skill, for example, there's one where they're holding a piece of timber here. How sensitive are they to texture? What am I going to do about that? So all the time you seem to be in this snowstorm of possibilities. And of course it looks very effortless. It also looks as if you're dominating. Because at this stage you're bustling about and it looks like she's visiting us. We're just as important as that other group. You can't afford to miss a group. And the actual energy of moving from place to place is made by your demeanour. And it is at this stage that people began to say, Miss, to me, and if they ask me something that I think would be a useful thing for everybody, that's when you'll hear me say, well, why not ask everybody? People, can you just, you know, what you cannot do is ask for them unless they can't cope with the public voice, in which you say, Ian here's had an idea, was it something to do with, and you get half of it said by the public voice, and the other half you fill in and you amplify. I don't know if you caught what he said, but what was that word you used? All the time we're trying to give it away. Now then, I just want to move to the next stage, where you feel I could stay a little longer in role and give them a real challenging experience of meeting a role, but they'll meet me. I'll not bring anybody in yet. I'll just do it. Now, I want to give you an example here of a role staying in longer than what we've been dealing with so far. You look at this. This is the manager of Chiso.
I do a 12-hour day.
Now, you see this manager is trying to get those girls to be confident that they've got a voice and an opinion. They don't have a voice and opinion that they believe in. Now, you can see that this is the tool that's been chosen there to say cliché Japanese. I mean, anything more cliché could you find? Cliché Japanese. But when you watch, that role there is slowly losing power and authority. So the role is escalating the girls' capacity to take power. It takes 10 minutes before they'll speak. So the role, that role, it cannot come out of role, is the manager of Chiso. There's no way. Now what we're going to look at, you see, is obviously that particular set of specs is that sort of cliche. This particular set of specs I've already shown you. I'm not suggesting you use spectacles. I'm suggesting you use anything. But one of the things that work for me is, because my face is very active, I find these quite useful. I don't use them often. You might think I use them all the time. If I'm working with younger children and I want to be a bit helpless, these are really useful. They're ever so useful because, you know.
Yes.
And of course, these are different again. If I want to be fairly masculine fairly quickly, I can do it a little bit with this. Now, this is nothing to do with the specs. The specs are only how does that project? Because you see, one of the things I tend to preserve all the time, and I would suggest you should do the same, is I never stop being Mrs. Heathcote. I am never undignified, at least. Not but I want to keep reminding them, this is only me doing it to myself, and you can do it to yourselves.
Yes.
So we're not talking about disguising, and you'll find there are things you might use, just your collar and tie, which I haven't got. I sometimes do have one, mind you. It's surprising. I sometimes can do quite a lot with my hair. It's just the things that get there close. Now, what we're going to do is build a role that you might find yourself having to do here. After all, Mr. Evans wrote a letter. They sent one back. Mr. Evans has now suggested a meeting according to your letter. So the promise in that is we're going to meet this Mr. Evans. Who is this Mr. Evans going to be? You'll negotiate with the class. You may get children saying, can I be Mr. Evans? And if they say, can I be Mr. Evans, you know, then they can be Mr. Evans. What they have to do then is say, well, we'll predict what we think Mr. Evans will do. Because you can't be a consultant and Mr. Evans simultaneously, but what you can do is say, you know, that's a really handy suggestion. Yes, we could run a test on what we think. However, what we're doing now is, in your head you're saying they're going to need Mr. Evans. They'll not need him for long, but it allows me to reinforce the curriculum and find out which they are more excited by, so that I start there on the grind of learning, if you can call it that, the grind of learning. So here's Derek, and we're going to dress Mr. Evans like you think you might be able to do it if you know, right, in this lesson, at some stage I'm going to take up Owen Evans. As my role, and they're going to come and explain what they've done to me. So here's Derek, and you just conjure now what would suggest the man has come on a journey. He's a business person. He is not, however, a banker. He's not a tycoon. He's a servant of a committee. He represents something that as yet is a dream. So you talk me into sorting Derek out. We can move his table whenever you think. You can put Derek where you want him to be. for the moment. So you decide whether you would want to sit down as Mr. Evans, or whether you would want him to stand up or walk in.
I think yes, we don't want the table.
You don't want that table?
No,
then,
that
okay.
table. I'd perhaps like to see him walking in, maybe.
Right. So you're thinking of yourself as Mr. Evans. I mean, we're doing it on Derek,
Yes.
but you're saying, right, some stage I'll negotiate with them that when I walk in I'll be Mr. Evans, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you want Derek to walk in.
Um,
Now, what you want him to walk in, suggesting is come in a car.
come in a car. He'll have to have something with him, a briefcase perhaps, or something that will indicate that he's
Now, do you
on
normally
business.
have a briefcase in the classroom? I mean, do you carry your school
N-
notes in with you
yes,
in a
I do.
briefcase? Right.
Yes, so we
Is
could
it a
use.
nicely well-worn one? Or is it a...
Yes,
posh-
that's
yes.
very so well worn.
A
one.
well-worn one. A well-worn one would be quite useful.
yes.
Now, this looks a bit new because its colour suggests it. Now, if it is a new briefcase, if yours is a new briefcase, then that is a sign element that for this special big
precisely.
job he's got, he's actually invested in a new briefcase. Now, if that's what you think, that's how you use it. It's not yet familiar to him. It's a status symbol.
Yes.
It's a garden festival briefcase, this. You know, it's not what I usually do in the insurance company or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if it has to be new, then we use it as new. We don't pretend it's old. Because they'll read new briefcase.
Briefcase.
The kids will read what's really there.
New job, new.
Okay,
Yes.
so we are, let's say we're lumbered with this because this is the one we've got today. Okay, so there he is, he's in his shirt, his tie, he's got his briefcase, he's wearing a wedding ring.
Yes. Would he have a jacket?
Well, it's up to you. He's coming to a formal meeting.
I think he probably would, wouldn't he?
You want him to have a
Have a
jacket.
jacket.
And would you come in a jacket that day then, or would you have one handy?
Well, now you're asking me. Yeah, I guess
Do you wear jackets? You see,
Normally I don't.
I couldn't do it with a jacket, and I would still be a mister, but I'd have to do it in some other way. I won't start dressing myself up.
I see his jacket
Yes.
there, you see, but
Yes,
maybe,
yes.
is that not, I'd have to come in a jacket that day specifically.
Well, no, you can borrow one from the staff room if you know somebody will lend you one. If they take everything out of the pockets, that's very important. If you're borrowing materials like that, as quickly, casually, see that it's empty before you take it away. Right. So is
Yes.
that how you envisage
That's-
yourself possibly arriving as Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Well, now that's what you can negotiate. Now let's see you negotiate it with the class. May we borrow your briefcase, Derek? So you've got this around, and we'll borrow your jacket if we may, Derek, because Ian hasn't got one today. Now, your job then is to get them
To
to
do
tell you how they think Mr. Evans would come to a meeting like this. You're awakening their self-spectator of this event. Now, it looks as if I'm saying, make sure they tell you you need a briefcase. Make sure they put you into a jacket. What you can do, though, is to say, well, I'll tell you how Mr. Evans comes to the meeting. He comes in a car. Now, you see, you may choose to have your car keys. So if you normally carry them in your pocket, that's when you might negotiate. Well, Mr. Evans comes in a car. Now, you see, I don't have a jacket, but I can have a car key. I could do it with a car key and a folder. And I can be masculine with a car key and what I do with my car key. Because I can't put on a jacket, I would look ridiculous. The signing would be all wrong if I were to do that.
Yes.
So now, let's see if you can... I know this is crazy because you haven't got a real class. But just the kinds of statements you think would help us invent you, the Mr. Evans. If we invent this in, you'll use it. If we invent something else in, you'll find a way to get it. You may have to borrow a child's jacket. In which case you'll have it over your shoulder. It doesn't have to fit you. Will you just try that?
Yeah.
Now this is really hard for Ian. It's always easier with a class. Right. Get my notes again.
Well, we've agreed that Mr. Evans will be coming to visit us, and what I'd like to do is find out what you think Mr. Evans might be like. Can you give me some idea of the sort of things that he might have with him? He's just come by car. He's travelled all the way from Cardiff. What might he be carrying? What might he be wearing?
Now you're falling into your trap of talking too long again, you know.
Yeah, I realised as I was talking.
Try something as simple. I know this will feel funny to you because I'm wishing it on you. I'm wishing it on Ian, so he can't feel it's right. Right. Okay. How do you want Mr. Evans? I'm waiting and I'll do it for you. And you've stood. You've energised it.
Yeah.
This is not energising.
Yeah.
Sitting down can energise totally differently, but it doesn't on an occasion like this. The sign, remember that. I am signing, I'm waiting to be, I'm only a model. What you want. If nothing happens, because they need thinking time, you know, they're staring at you. In my case, they're staring at how old I am and whether I've got grey hair and all the things. Because normally, you know, kids stare at teachers, but covertly. You're inviting an overt staring, for goodness sake. Look at me in all my own glory, you know. Okay, that's when you may have to feed. That's when you might say, have you got some car keys in your pocket?
Yep.
Right. Right. Car or train ticket? Cardiff to Nottingham. Now that's what I'd call feeding. You're keying in. Okay?
Right.
So give us that choice. Now you see, I couldn't say train because that isn't a train ticket. But I have to say it's a ticket representative. Does that make sense? Car, it is real. Train ticket. Okay.
Right.
Don't get disheartened by the need of the minute particulars. Right. Now you're demonstrating energetically, I'm at your service.
Right. How do you want Mr. Evans? Car or train ticket?
My instinct is to say car.
Right, car.
And again, you know, you may get half and half. You can't decide. If it's half and half, let them argy-bargy themselves and listen. Who's pulling fast ones? Who's fighting? Who's being aggressive? And you can deal with it. Mr. Evans is waiting to become. Okay, so we've chosen a car.
He's come in his car.
That's right. I'm coming by car. Actually, it would be he's coming by car. Because you're not yet, Mr. Evans. So feed us some more.
He's coming by car. Will he be carrying anything? Bringing anything with him?
Now, for some reason I'm not happy with that, and I think it's the interrogation.
Yes. You need to offer something in a statement.
That's right. I'm not pleased with it. It's interesting, this, because I'm learning as much as you. We are always learning all the time. Now, how can he say without the interrogatory question?
Make offers as he did before by having
options.
Well,
Yes.
you can
Does that mean-
say jacket or you've got a cardigan.
yes.
But you don't say jacket or cardigan. You say formal, casual. And
So
it
it'll be-
feeds, you see, and you're only offering alternatives. You are not letting them be creative. Because there's only one of you and 10 minutes, you
Yes.
see. So you've offered one alternative, they chose car. Formal?
Formal or creative?
Formal?
Or informal?
Casual.
Casual.
Casual is better. Can you see why? Casual is a positive,
It's a- yes,
positive
yes,
specification.
yes.
Yeah. Formal? Casual. Right?
Mm.
Now face the class there and hold it strong. Right.
Okay.
Are you learning from this?
Oh,
Or is it
yes.
driving you nuts? Right.
I'm learning the hard way.
Yeah, keep it still because I want to see what it does to me.
Okay.
You see, what you've done there is a resonating statement. We talked about resonance in an earlier tutorial.
Yeah.
Formal, and it resonates around my head. Is it doing it for you?
Mm.
Casual.
Casual.
Now, they need to be more, just that little bit more projected. That's all.
Formal,
Keep it.
casual.
That's much stronger. Now, I'll say what that's done to me, and you can say what it did to you. It's making me think, if he wears that, he'll be different. I fancy that one. I think I'll feel more important. Now, see what it did to you.
My instinct says it would be formal because he's made the effort. So I would go for the jacket. And that immediately leads me into a jacket has pockets. What are the possibilities there?
Yes.
What's contained within that outer
Yes,
shape?
yes. Now, they've chosen formal, really, haven't we? The class has chosen
Yes.
formal. Put that down, and while you put it on,
I might.
well, it might not fit you, but
But
try.
but
It doesn't
yeah.
matter, because we know
Yes,
what the
okay.
problem is here. Now, put it on formally, and as you put it on, you become formal, and this is when you might take a pen and put it in your pocket. Take my pencil for the moment.
Yes.
And place your hand where you think, you see. All right? And you can check. That's all right. Keep your car keys. Right. Now make the next negotiation.
Empty-handed or with papers?
Now then, empty-handed is a long way off now, in a kind of a funny way. It's to do with, do you want him to be really well read in what he's come to do, or he hasn't bothered enough? You see, we're talking straight, ordinary talk.
Yes.
So that you're actually showing them the implication. In other words, do you want to deal with a bloke that you blooming well teach to be careful, or do you want to deal with a bloke who's done all his homework and will really look rigorously? Now, I would really have to think hard about the answer to that. I'm thinking as a child now.
Yeah.
See if you can get that over to me. Keep your formality, because you've been endowed with it.
Is he well prepared, or does he have nothing with him?
It's still a bit distant. See, I can be rigorous with you because I know you want to try.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to.
Do you need
cripple.
something more substantial?
Yes. What you do is you ask the question that's what I'd call more academic sounding. Do you want to deal with a guy that
Yes.
doesn't miss a trick and has really done his homework? And you're showing that with
Yes.
strength. Or do you want to deal with a guy who really couldn't care less and he's going to have to be taught? Now, actually, it's the same question.
Yes.
In other words, in terms of the children,
Yeah.
their standards and the curriculum, it's the same question. If he has done his homework, they'd better be as good as him. If he hasn't done his homework, they'd better be better. So you see, it actually doesn't give them a choice because you won't let go on rigour or responsibility. That will never be off. Now, I won't push you on that because you've got to feel it for yourself. That's when you can sit down because you're saying, I'm facing you with what you're prepared to take on.
And you give them some space to then...
Yes, and you bait it. It became a game. Do you want to deal? Do you want to deal with a guy?
Yes.
You see.
Yeah.
Now I'll plump for, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they answer, because the rigor's been planted by the question. I'll plump for. We'd like it to look like you've carefully studied what you need before you came.
Right.
So how will you help us demonstrate that in sign? Self-spectator again, you see.
Right.
So I've studied everything. Okay. Right. Let's see. I wonder what I need.
I come with a set of papers, a tidy set of papers. Yeah, I come with a very small set of papers, or I come with a briefcase.
I would say, if I were a child here, I think I'd say, oh, you should have a briefcase. You've got to take a lot away with you, because we've done a lot. You know, you're going to have to carry a lot back to look at. And I'd plump for that. I don't know what you'd plump for.
Yeah, I think so. I think when it comes to papers, somehow, I don't know whether this fits the scheme, but he'd have a paper to give to them. If he'd done the homework, he's got something ready
He may
to
well
hand
something
out.
like,
He's got the
you know,
handout.
Yes. Well, now pick both up. You've got another lovely choice. You see, I didn't even know you had.
Yeah,
both
I've just
lovely
found
choices.
it.
Yes, well, that's how it
beautiful.
is, yes.
Now then, let's sit back and have a look. Now, it's terribly important at this stage that the role that we are building through your choices, that's all they are, they're just alternatives. That's all it is. We can get further back to look. So only you can move back. There's 34 of us. We're probably all cluttered up, leaning on one another and carrying on. So I know you can't do it today,
just
but
move
it is
back.
important at this point, because you've nearly reached the end
Yes.
of developing
Keys.
Mr. Evans, you see, that's right. And then you can just wait with a question. The whole body's a question at
Yes.
this point. Signing the intention. I like both. I think you could carry that like you look to be ready, and you can carry that in case you... Yes,
We'll
I
have them
think
both.
that's all right. That would do. You've got your pen. Now, would you be comfortable going through this rigmarole? Because you can only learn this by doing it with classes. And you know what you're doing here is you're saying, I'm going to learn how to let them build me.
Yes. I mean, the thing about it is that it's slow. The build-up is slow. You're just taking time to build it up bit by bit. And each bit builds on the previous bit.
Yes, but some classes can't take it as slow. So for some classes, you let them take the first two choices and you make the second two yourself so they do not fail. It's always this business of how much can I get out of this for them? How much rigour for them? Responsibility. You've got one last question, if they can handle it. Do you want a guy who wants to like what you're doing? Or a guy that you may have to win round? Now that is the highest order question you could ask. Remember, we're talking about junior children. And you can bait it. People will tell me, oh, well, you made the choice you wanted. I don't. I don't bait knowingly. But some will win. You can occasionally bait to win because you need to for them.
Yes.
So it's a question of the balancing thing again. Do you want a person, this Mr. Owens, to be on your side and like your work from the beginning? Or do you want somebody you have to convince? Now you see, they'd be better choosing somebody they can convince because you get more teaching curriculum out of it. However, they may choose the other, in which case your liking can quite quickly turn critical, you see, because you're paid to teach.
Yes.
Okay, there's a nice Mr. Owen there, and from then on, obviously, this is curriculum being taught now through role. So you can put your briefcase down, sit down, keep your car keys, whatever, and we just look at what curriculum Mr. Owen can deal with at this stage. They've had meetings, they've decided what interests them, and they are reporting to you their ideas in groups for the pavilion. Now you see, naturally because of the way we're talking, you're sitting sideways like I am, but it would be very important you sit dead centre, legs under the table, ready to address whatever they present to you, you see. Now that's when you may have to come out of role for a moment and say, right, I suppose Mr. Evans will have to have some sort of presentation in order. I don't know how you want to decide to present the material to Mr. Owen, Mr. Evans, you see.
Yes.
So you negotiate then for them, or you decide, no, I think socially they could handle this, so I'll sit back and say, well, ladies and gentlemen, I must say I'm very pleased to meet you at last, and I understand there's a lot to be seen, and you wait, and you only help out if they can't handle it. And when they handle it, you register how they've handled it. Oh yes, it's that same little group again. Okay, that's fine. The others will let them make the model.
When you move out, if you decide you need to move out, do you have to move away from the jacket and you can do it?
You can make a contract if you wish. Sometimes you may feel young children, younger than we are dealing with, because we've set this at a certain level in the curriculum. You might have to say, well, when I sit down, we're in the forest. Or when I sit down, okay, we're in the bus. When I stand up, we're able to talk about it. So you set up a ritual. Some teachers are happy with that because they feel it reinforces the sign. Now, I take more risks. I just simply alter my demeanour and then I go back again. So I'm prepared to take that sort of risk. You do what you need. You see, you're balancing your need to comfort yourself and cope and your need to get them to do the rigorous work.
Yes.
And you can always be saved by the bell. If you're not sure how to handle this, look at the clock, 5 to 12, start it now. What a pity. We'll pick it up again just after break or whatever. And you've had just that 10 minutes to just, you know, sort of recover it. So you can, to a certain extent, control the clock. You are the one that's introducing Mr. Evans to them. You don't have to introduce him yet if you don't feel they're ready to handle it. And he's not King Ahab. You know, he's not going to have all their heads off and hang them up or string them up or put them down wells. He's not that sort of guy. He's an inquiring voice, which is a better voice, in my view, for developing their capacities than the teacher saying, right, bring your work out.
Yes.
Because that's all it is. It's bring your work out. Demonstrate through me to yourselves what you've done. Through me, I can show you what you now know. It seems to me you've had a real understanding about how glass has to work. That there's a brittleness about it. Yes, I can see that. You've really understood it. Some people, you know, they put glass in and they don't realise the stress. You teach them what you see they're proving they know.
Yes.
You see, and they're teaching you, which is the third level that I mentioned. Now, if that makes a bit of sense, and if you still feel comfortable, you really have made an enormous stride in just one tutorial. From an attitude protected by a letter to a few words addressed and a carefully chosen style, through to fully taking on, really, the teacher examiner. And of course, the levels in that, you'll still be doing this. At this stage, Owen Evans is teaching the curriculum. He isn't drifting about being an interesting Welshman. There's nothing of that in him. It's things like, excuse me, I must take a note about that. How many questions did you have on the matter? It was a question of what was that? And you make them clarify their questions.
Yeah.
You can compliment on them if you wish, but you can make them dictate to you and explain to you what those questions really mean. You can then throw it straight back and say, well, I think what I could do here, because you're always positive, I could go back to my committee. In the meantime, I do believe the Forestry Commission might be of more use to you than me. So when, you know, all you do is you put your car keys down and you say, how did you get on with Evans then? Did he have any carps or problem? And they'll tell you as if you've never been there.
Right.
Did he suggest anything? I mean, would you say he was positive? And you learn what they saw. At first they won't be able to explain, but gradually they will. And they will never be confused because you shifted your sign. Still comfortable.
Yeah,
Right.
I like the idea of shifting, putting the car keys down. That
Yes,
puts
that's right. The
him away.
symbol, the sign. Now let's just pull it all together and let's get the rules out. Let's just turn these over so that we don't get confused by our class for the moment. Now these are the rules then. What you have offered the children is a context for the curriculum work that is not doing it for the teacher. It is an artificially induced context. In order to keep that context central, you have to expand your signing systems. That is, you start looking at what is significantly available and how do I play down that which I don't need. You can't constantly have, you know, the school rebuilt, refurbished, everything altered, and you have no lights, equipment or anything like that in this case. You are trying, because of the context, to avoid where you can the teacher type talk that takes the power. You are not stopping teaching. I would like you to be really, you know, clear on this. Now, these things, if you do that, an artificially made context, using sign to purpose, and avoiding teacher type talk because the context is what drives, these things naturally arise. Now here time is constantly invoked. Sometimes it's invoked because you're in role, and it has to be now here. When you are in the context and you are running the firm, it's still now time. Oh, by the way, they want us to do such and such. Or I said, look, you'll have to give us a breather. We just need time to finish some work. You're starting too many projects. You want us to have everything yesterday. So I said, listen, we can't do all that till we're finished with this. You're giving them a chance to put a line under something and say, this we have sorted out. Later it'll have to go into the final wind tunnel business and so on. It offers, no, you have now here time and you have the frame shift. Now, the frame shift in the case of Mr. Evans is we are demonstrating to you, do you remember the triangle? We are giving you a demonstration of our thinking. So Mr. Evans is demonstrating back how he's receiving it. They may also be briefing Mr. Evans. They may move from a demonstration to a briefing because you might feel this is the way Mr. Evans can move them on. Right, I'll take these back to my committee. In the meantime, what do you see is the next stage I should do? At that point, you see, they start briefing you. Well, Mr. Evans, this is what we'll need. We're going to have to visit the site. we're going to have to do this. Now, if you want it to move from demonstration to briefing, as a teacher, you can negotiate it beforehand. You can say, by the way, while he's here, don't let's forget, we're going to have to, you know, find out more about how far they've got on with their work. I mean, we might need to visit the site. I don't know about you, but I don't believe in measurements till I've measured them myself. At
Yes.
that point, you see, you've laid it in advance that there'll be, Evans will be asked to give them a briefing of what he intends. So, you enter this affective zone, back to that double brain thing again. But the affective zone is there to stimulate the cognitive.
Right.
It's for the curriculum of the learning. It also frees you from antiseptic talk. You can't be antiseptic if you're building up Evans's visit. You can't be antiseptic if you're saying, in the real world, you know, we've never worked out that holiday rota because these kids can't read a calendar. So I'm going to have a holiday rota worked out, and they're going to read the calendar, and they're going to know which months have 31, 30 and 28. Because you'll have to be able to read a calendar to work out a holiday rota. You might decide, for example, Mr. Evans is a bit unfamiliar with some of these words we're using, like typhoon and hurricane. He's never heard of them coming into England much, and would it be suitable? Compiling him a dictionary of terms for winds might be one of the important things, but it's the teacher in you that uses the role to make the context so they do the job. They can see it's got a purpose. The purpose is not, you know, I mean, if a mother says, "And what did you do in school today, dear?" It's easy to say, "Well, we met a guy called Mr. Evans and he was on about such and such." You're more likely to get an answer than, "Oh, not much." Because it's been a part of a highlight of work, or I finished a diorama, or whatever it might be.
So it's septic because it's connected to other things.
That's
it's connected
right.
to Mr.
Yes.
Evans.
And of course I haven't got a better word than septic for the opposite of antiseptic. So much talk is antiseptic in the classroom in that it's been removed from a true purpose. That's what I mean by antiseptic. You know, we're doing the Tudors. That's what I call antiseptic. I call that antiseptic, doing the Tudors. Well, what does it mean? It's nowhere near any place. At least it isn't to me. Everything has an immediate task focus. There's something to be done because of this. We're getting ready for Mr. Evans. We're getting Mr. Evans ready. We're presenting him with our work. We are actually going away to rethink how best to show him pollution. Or in this case, it happens to be Mr. Evans. Now, it permits this high focus and close attention to detail. Mr. Evans can, in an inviting way, in this case Mr. Evans, in an inviting way get them to say it again because he's asked a different question. And he can foreshadow and promise, like, "Oh, this is going to look so exciting in the pavilion. I wonder if we could do some sort of leaflet that people could take away with them to remind them of this." Mr. Evans is foreshadowing. It's how the real world works. If I walk into mother care, it does assume I've either got somebody going to be a mother. It's not going to be me now, but, you know, there's a foreshadowing of an event somehow. Why am I buying one? Whatever it might be I'm buying. And so it permits this very high focus and close learning. And of course, by being in role, whether you are the manager, the colleague manager or Mr. Evans, it controls parameters and drift. Mr. Evans hasn't come all the way from Cardiff to discuss bunions unless they are relevant. And he doesn't have to be bothered listening to whether you like Jimmy Jones who sits next to you. Because as Mr. Evans, he has time calling him. And so on, you see. So you get a lot of drift and aimless work in projects where children are drifting about, nosying through books. They haven't got that high framing focus that that guy's coming this afternoon and I've got to get a picture of a tree so that I can explain to him what I want. And also all responses become useful and usable, but you can productively challenge them. I'm afraid I didn't come all the way from Cardiff to be told something that really I don't see much relevance in. Perhaps I'm misunderstanding you. And often they hear their flippant ideas turned into good gold. You know, a throwaway line, you can choose to ignore it as teachers do, or you can pick it up. I didn't quite catch what you said. And as Mr. Evans, you can insist. Well, maybe I was misunderstanding, but I got the feeling there that this firm is not so serious as we'd thought. And, you know, it takes courage to do that. But you can productively challenge. The role models appropriate vocabulary. It feeds information in the context. It invokes productive tension when you want it. And it invites suitable language and linguistic forms. You don't talk to Mr. Evans like you'd talk to the cleaner or the guard. Not because you are denigrating one or the other. It's to do with, in social circumstances like this is the tone that we'll need. You see. And again, people may feel, oh, well, you know, it's all too nitty-gritty, but it isn't. Now, finally, the role enables you to start a circumstance in which children get attracted. It's very attractive to have the power to tell you whether you come by train or not. It then allows you to develop a bit of interest after this attraction. What will Mr. Evans say when he first comes in? That interest may lead to involvement. We've been through this before. Involvement can breed concern. Concern can breed absorption. And finally, it can breed productive obsession. But it's won patiently. And above all, it shares power. And it wins responsibility. And I don't know whether you still feel comfortable. It seems such a boring question, but it would to me be desperately important that you are comfortable enough with it to give it a try. To just give it a try. Because you're embarking on a journey that will change you utterly. It will change how you collect material, it will change how you look at children, it will change how you see learning. And though you may be tired, you'll never be weary. Now, the next stage, there's just one more I feel that you can move towards to test yourself before you embark on this. And that is, sometimes you might want to bring in, as I suggested in an earlier tutorial, say a member of a sixth form who might be interested in whether they'd like to teach, who wants to sort of be safe in a situation among younger children, because though it isn't long since they were little, it'll feel long to them since they were little, where you must learn to protect such people, where you want a role who so convinces that they require protection, they can't come out of the lifestyle. Next tutorial, full roll. Gird your loins up. Okay.
Thank you.
Right.